She earned $2 million in 15 years. Her net worth the morning her accountant laid the full picture in front of her was $11,000. He did not say anything for a long time. Neither did she. Then, he asked the only question that mattered. At any point, did anything feel wrong? She thought about it honestly. The way you only think about something when the cost of lying to yourself has finally become higher than the cost of the truth. No, she said. Every single decision felt completely right. That answer is the entire investigation, not where the money went. Why nothing ever felt wrong while it was disappearing. She was not reckless. Establish that clearly. She was not a gambler, not an addict, not someone making the visible, obvious mistakes that other people observe from a safe distance and feel certain they would never make. She read. She planned. She had, at various points, genuine and well-reasoned financial intentions. The intentions just never quite held. Not dramatically, just consistently, with a quiet reliability she never recognized as a pattern because she was always too close to the individual event to see what the events were forming together. A savings milestone would appear, and then a legitimate reason to redirect it. A family situation. A necessary investment. An opportunity with a sound thesis. Each decision defensible in isolation. Each one assembled with the others across 15 years, forming something that looked less like a series of rational choices and more like a system working very hard to maintain a specific outcome. That system was not the economy. It was not circumstance. It was her. Specifically, a part of her she had never been introduced to. Here is something worth pausing on before we go further. Think about your own financial life over the last 3 years. Not any single decision. The pattern. Has your net worth grown consistently, stayed mysteriously flat, or moved in a direction you struggle to fully explain? Go to the comments and write one honest line. Because what surfaces in answering that question tells you more than any budget ever could. Back to her. The behavioral science beneath what happened is something almost no financial content explains correctly. Because most financial content treats money as a mathematics problem. It is not. It never was. Money is a psychological event that happens to involve numbers. Every financial decision carries an emotional weight entirely disconnected from its numerical value. A weight calibrated not by adult reasoning but by childhood experience. By the specific emotional atmosphere that surrounded money during the years when the brain was laying its most foundational beliefs about how the world works and what is available to people like you. Those beliefs did not arrive as lessons. They arrived as atmosphere, as the feeling in the room when bills were mentioned, as what happened to the adults' faces during financial stress, as the quiet, unspoken conclusion a young mind drew from years of immersion in a specific financial reality. And because those conclusions formed before conscious reasoning was fully developed, they never registered as beliefs. They registered as facts, as the way things simply are. And the brain, operating from that foundation, does not present them for reconsideration. It executes them. Silently, continuously, beneath every financial decision that follows. Her operating premise, found eventually through work she describes as the most uncomfortable thing she has ever done, was a single sentence she had never consciously formed but had been living for 15 years. Accumulation beyond a certain point is not safe for someone like me. Not a thought. A nervous system instruction, expressed not as language but as behavior. As the reliable appearance whenever savings crossed a specific threshold of a reason to redirect them. The reasons were always different. The threshold was always identical. Researchers in financial psychology call this the internal wealth limit. The unconscious ceiling beyond which the brain begins generating exit strategies not because the conscious mind decided to exit, but because accumulation beyond the set point produces an anxiety the nervous system is motivated to resolve. The resolution arrives dressed in completely convincing clothes. A reasonable decision, a sound justification. A logical explanation that the conscious mind endorses without ever knowing it was recruited to defend a conclusion that had already been reached somewhere much deeper. If you have ever looked back at a financial decision that felt completely right at the time and wondered, with a distance of months or years, what you were actually protecting, drop the word ceiling in the comments. Because the gap between how a decision felt and what it actually produced is precisely where the psychology lives. And you are not the only one who has stood in that gap. The second mechanism was more dangerous because it was almost entirely invisible. It operated not through action, but through inaction, through the decisions she never made, the options that never traveled from interesting to pursue, the opportunities that accumulated quiet, reasonable explanations for why now was not the right time. Psychologists call this the upper limit problem, the phenomenon by which people approaching the boundary of what they unconsciously believe they deserve begin generating friction against their own progress. The reasoning is always contextual, always specific, always superficially sound. What it never is the real reason. The real reason is older than the reasoning. It is the internal conviction that a different ceiling applies to a person with her history, her background, her particular understanding of what people like her are permitted to build. She passed on 3 significant opportunities during the years her accountant examined. Not impulsively, she had thought carefully about each one. She had identified real risks, real complications, genuinely valid reasons why the timing was imperfect. Every reason was true. None of them were the actual driver. The actual driver was a quiet and persistent belief that the version of her life in which those opportunities succeeded was not the version she was supposed to inhabit. Think about your own recent past. Is there an opportunity, a financial decision, an investment, a business, a risk that you talked yourself out of with reasoning that felt entirely sound but that you have quietly wondered about since? Go to the comments and describe it in one sentence. Not because it is comfortable, because identifying what stopped you is more valuable than the opportunity itself ever was. The autopsy revealed 4 mechanisms operating simultaneously beneath every decision across 15 years. The first was identity preservation, the brain's deep structural drive to maintain coherence between external reality and internal self-concept. When financial circumstances begin diverging significantly from the internal story, when the account starts looking like it belongs to someone different from who you believe yourself to be, the brain moves to close that gap. Not by revising the story, by revising the circumstances. Wealth that exceeds the internal identity is experienced, not consciously, but neurologically, as a foreign object. And the body has always been very efficient at rejecting foreign objects. The second was the confirmation architecture, the way a belief system filters incoming information to protect its own conclusions. Evidence that challenges the belief gets discounted, reframed, explained away. Evidence that confirms it gets absorbed and weighted heavily. Over 15 years, every financial reversal had been silently filed into a case that the conscious mind never knew existed. A case whose conclusion was written before the first piece of evidence was collected. The third was decision fatigue compounded by emotional avoidance. The cumulative weight of chronic financial anxiety, even low-level, background, never quite addressed financial anxiety gradually depletes the cognitive resources available for proactive financial thinking. The mind under that weight gravitates toward the immediate and reactive. Long-term wealth building requires sustained, proactive engagement with financial reality that is genuinely uncomfortable to maintain. Chronic stress makes that engagement progressively harder, and in the space that opens up, the old automatic patterns return without announcement. The fourth was the one she found hardest to accept. It was grief. The unconscious grief of having absorbed, at a formative age, a story about limitation, about what was available, about the scale of life that was appropriate for someone with her particular origins. That story had never been examined, because examining it would have required feeling what it had cost, and the mind, in its commitment to self-protection, had found it more efficient to keep executing the story than to stop and grieve what the story had taken. Here is the truth that every financial investigation eventually reaches, regardless of the income level, regardless of the intelligence, regardless of the sincerity of the intentions involved. The most expensive financial mistake most people will ever make is not a decision they made badly. It is a belief they inherited and never examined. It is the operating premise, installed before they had any say in the installation, that has been functioning as the actual decision maker in their financial life, while the conscious mind believed it was in charge. Every budget is downstream of that premise. Every strategy is filtered through it. Every genuine intention is executed by a nervous system whose deepest instructions were written in a language the conscious mind never learned to read. And this is why financial education, applied without psychological excavation, produces temporary results at best. The information enters at the conscious level, the belief operates below it, and the deeper level does not lose that contest, not without work that goes further down than most people are prepared to go. She is rebuilding. Not from a dramatic moment of transformation, from something slower and more structural, from the specific, uncomfortable, repeated work of making the automatic conscious, of identifying the exact belief, the precise sentence, the instruction her nervous system had been executing, and then, against the momentum of 15 years, choosing something different. Not once. Repeatedly, in the small decisions the brain dismisses as insignificant, and that compounding eventually reveals as everything. She says the strangest part is not the financial change. It is the feeling of allowing accumulation to continue past the old threshold without generating a reason to stop it. Of sitting with the anxiety that the old pattern used to resolve, and discovering that the anxiety, when not immediately acted on, eventually passes on its own. That discomfort, the specific, unfamiliar feeling of allowing a different outcome than the one the nervous system was trained to produce, is what changing a financial identity actually feels like from the inside. Not empowering. Not cinematic. Just uncomfortable. And then gradually, less so. And then, slowly, like the beginning of something that was always supposed to be there. The ceiling was never made of circumstance. It was made of a story. And stories, unlike ceilings, can be rewritten by the person living inside them. So here is the final question. Not about your portfolio, not about your budget, about the premise. What is the one belief about money you have been living as though it were a fact, and where did it come from? Go to the comments and write it out before you edit it. That first unguarded answer is